Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about starting over, being a graduate, and what I would do. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, what would you do if you were a graduate today and you wanted to start your career? And the short answer is, I would probably do things pretty much the same way I did back in the day. I would, and I'm gonna explain. So let me explain. So I would say that it's kind of funny because I've had a few people now who, since I've been doing this little YouTubing thing or talking in my bath, well, I wasn't always in my bathtub, the old days, but I had this question now a few times where people have said, do you still feel the same way you did about things? Like, are your roadmaps still relevant? Are your tips and tricks about getting a job still relevant because it's 2020 and I don't know, I started at 2018, 2017 or something like that? And I always reply the same thing and I go, pretty much always, yes. It's still relevant because although you may believe that, so you've heard this probably, you've heard that software engineering moves at at light speed, everything changes all the time. And yes, that is true to a point, but the big stuff, the stuff that usually I call core, that is core to the industry, doesn't change all that much. I would say that if you are today looking for your first job as a software engineer, you are in pretty much the exact position I was a few years ago, I would say. Just on average when it comes to requirements on tooling, requirements on knowledge, etc., etc. It's very, very similar. So what I did when I was starting out was first and foremost that I prioritized personal development above all else. It was the most important thing that I was focusing on. And what that meant basically was that I was much more interested in finding some place where I could learn from more experienced people. Now that was not a very tough thing when you're pretty much fresh out of college, you have no experience. So any job that gives you a way to talk to coworkers is going to teach you something. So that's a good first check. Make sure that you're not working completely alone or something like that. Focus on getting to work with other people that have more experience because they will teach you so much. Even at my first job, that was, well, technically it was my second job, but it was a very tough environment for me to work in. I learned so much. It was absolutely horrible. Like, it was a really tough position to be in for me, but I learned so much. I was introduced to React and I started doing that, and that led into greater stuff. There was so much stuff that happened for me. So that should be your focus. That should be the driving thing. What you should be doing in order to achieve this goal is, first and foremost, make sure that you get yourself a public profile on something like LinkedIn or similar sort of stuff, and make yourself known to the world. Spend time to make a really nice CV. If you're unsure of how to make a CV or stuff like that, go and copy paste or steal my CV if you want to. It's not perfect by any means, but I've had many compliments on, like, oh, that the recruiters, they think it looks nice and there's a lot of relevant stuff. Well, try to not, yours is going to look different from mine, but you can look at the overall structure with sharing courses that you have taken, talking about having keywords for the technologies that you feel comfortable in, and having a short description about a personal introduction, like what do you like working in, why are you passionate about software engineering, what have you done, what are your side projects, etc., etc. And that leads us into number 3, which is going to be to make sure that you are constantly pushing yourself to learn more stuff. Not just anything. You have to be a little bit selective. Don't try to learn things that are irrelevant. That is one of the biggest mistakes that I wouldn't say, I can't call it a mistake because I have had some use out of it, but if I could do anything slightly different, I would say that I spent a lot of time getting excited is good, but mistaking excitement for value was one of the biggest mistakes that I made. I was, in my days, truly, I was completely convinced that microservices was the future. everybody's going to do microservices. It's going to be the most important thing. And I learned absolutely everything I could about it. And to this day, I still have not worked with microservices. It depends on how you define it, of course, because now the word microservice means literally anything in a SOA architecture. That's pretty much, at least, that's a personal definition. Don't take that to the bank. But it is true. That is what happened to me. And I would say that it's important for you to learn the things that are relevant. So focus on getting good at something that is relevant. And the way that you figure out if something is relevant is, of course, to just ask me about it. And don't listen to anybody else. And if I say something that may sound odd, go and check out the job postings. Just in case I don't know everything, go and check the job postings. The job postings, guys, is the place, that's the place where you will find what's relevant. The real stuff. The stuff that you're not going to find on the internet. Or rather, the stuff that you can trust. Because on the internet, even if it doesn't matter if it's someone on a stage or if it's someone who's sitting in their living room or they're at their desk with a camera and a big YouTube microphone and a subscribe me button, or if they're sitting in a bathtub, doesn't really matter who it is. You can't trust what they're saying 100%. It's not possible. So don't do it. The thing that you can trust 100% is the job posting. Because the job posting lists out what a company is willing to pay you to do. They're paying you to do this. I'm not paying you. The person who is clearly a professional programmer and not a YouTuber is not paying you. And Google is not paying you either to learn one of their systems that they just conveniently is promoting. They're just mentioning that on one of their corporate enterprise endeavors. So who should you talk to? What should you look at? You should look at the job posting. And the job posting is going to tell you very clearly what it is that you should be learning. Focus on that. Now, once you've been doing this for a little while and you focus and you feel like you have some understanding of this, now you need to make sure that your CV is popping. And by popping, I mean that you need to make sure that you are clearly showing that you're doing personal projects. They should not be trivial little hello world applications, to-do lists, stuff like that. It should be something that shows that you have put in an effort. And it should ideally be something that you're actually passionate about. The best thing you can possibly do when you go into a job interview is to very clearly show that you are really interested in programming, you really like it, and you just do it because you think it's fun. You're good at it, of course, because you have studied, but you also just do it because you enjoy the craft. You enjoy getting really good at this stuff. You do it in your spare time because you think it's fun. Passion is infectious, guys. People really want to be around passionate people, as long as they're not crazy about it. I know a few things about that as well. So what I want you to take away from this is that if I was a graduate today, I would approach my career or getting my first job in the same way I did. I don't know how many years back now, but it would be the same process. And although it is true that it's a new year and time continues forward, and that software engineering changes, that doesn't mean that it changes so frequently that everything that was true yesterday is not true today. It doesn't work that way. So the best tips I can give you is, number one, focus on the goal of getting experienced developers around you. That is your primary focus. So focus on companies where they are looking to add someone to a team, or they're adding like more juniors. Like, don't try to avoid, if it's possible, to work alone, because working alone is going to, although it's going to build up your CV and you can use that CV then and get a job that is going to give you coworkers, it's going to take longer for you. The best thing for you is to focus on getting coworkers or peers of any kind. Secondly, make sure that you have a good CV. Make sure that it's public. Make sure that people can find you, and make sure that it represents you in a good way. Add images, add personal products. Fill it up with anything that is relevant to an IT position. Don't fill it up with stupid stuff that doesn't have any relevancy. Like nobody cares if you know how to ride a tricycle. Nobody, or a unicycle. Nobody cares. Focus on the stuff that's going to be relevant. And lastly, make sure that you focus on what's going to be relevant for job purposes, and that is very easy. Just ignore everybody else that's saying to you stuff to you on the internet, and go and look at the job postings in your region, and just make a list of all the stuff that they are looking for. And there is your list. These are the things that are going to get you a job, and focus on learning that and be really good at it, so that you can then do some projects and do all of this other stuff to create a little bit of a portfolio for you, so that once you go into that job interview, you have a clear goal, you have a strong, good first impression due to your CV, and you have the technical skills in relevant technologies to that company. Have a great day.